Hello. Thank you so much, Macy's, for having me here today. I am super excited to be here. My name is Macy. I started the pedal out in Oak Park about 2 years ago. I took a short break from my marketing career to start the pedal. So I've always had a passion for flowers. I've always loved doing flowers. And when I lived in Minneapolis, there were these flower guys. They call themselves flower guys. It was a flower shop. Two very eccentric men. And it was so much fun to go there. It was right by my house, and they had a big warehouse filled with buckets of flowers and all different flowers that you wouldn't get normally at like a retailer, at a grocery store. So I had so much fun, and it was so cheap. So I went back, and I just had so much fun making different things. And the next thing I knew, I was doing flowers for weddings and friends' weddings and events. And it kind of morphed into the pedal, which is where I am today. And mostly the pedal, we do flowers for weddings and special events. So today, I am here to show you how to make a springtime arrangement. It's finally spring. Rain, thankfully, hopefully will bring some more flowers outside. And really what I'm going to show you is something that you can make simple at home that is springy and fun and is inspired by your garden. So all of the flowers that I have chosen today are all flowers that are very accessible. Either you can get them from your local grocery store, flower shop, or in your own garden. And I'd love to stress that because I think it's so important for us to use what we have accessible to us, especially now that the trees are going to start blooming. They're going to have beautiful buds on them. Already I saw just in my neighbor's yard that we're already starting. The daffodils are up, the tulips are starting to bloom. So why not, cut that and bring that into your home? So that's what I'm going to show you today. So the first thing we should do is to talk about your vessel or your vase. What are you going to use to make the arrangement? So since we're going to do kind of a garden-inspired arrangement, it's important for it to be very organic, flowy, and really loose and not very tight. I'm not going to show you something today that's very structured. We're going to use the flowers the best that they like to be used. Embrace the curvature, embrace the shape of the flower, and do what the flower wants to do to complement the arrangement, if that makes sense. So today I brought this vase to show you that it's easy to use anything, really. You can use a bowl, you can use a footed vase, you can use ceramics that you might have. This is just another example that I wanted to show, something clay and simple. Another trend that's really in right now is footed vases. Anything like a trifle bowl, something like that. A lot of people have some old bowls that were kind of used. They're kind of antiques, I guess, now. But people used to present their fruits and stuff in nice footed bowls. Those are great for using for flower arrangements. And the one thing you should think about is how are you going to use those if they are shallow. I probably should have brought one today, sorry. Anyways, it's okay if it's shallow because I am going to show you how to use a floral frog today. And that's kind of the trick to anchor the flowers to make sure that they don't move, and also to give you that flowy feel that you want for your arrangement. Another way to do it, if you don't have a floral frog, and these are really easy to get, I should say. You can get them from Michael's. I've seen them at a lot of craft stores, things like that. And they come in different sizes depending on how big your vase is. And then the other option, if you don't have that, is you can use chicken wire, which you can get at a hardware store, or even craft stores have them. You just kind of ball it up. I did one here so you can see. You ball it up and put it inside of the vase. And that, again, acts as an anchor. And it's reusable. It's one thing I'm trying to do, especially this year, is to not use as much of that floral foam that's not so great for the environment, but to use things that you can reuse again and again. And definitely the frogs and the chicken wire you can use multiple times. You just have to rinse it out and clean it out. So those are the base options. We're going to use this one today. And then obviously you need shears. And you will need a little bit of floral putty, which again is probably right next to the floral frog in the craft store. You just kind of ball it up. It's very sticky. I think I'm going to use the big one in here. Just make a ball, stick it on the bottom of the frog, and then you stick it on the bottom of the base. And you're doing this so that as soon as you put your stems in it, the frog doesn't kind of flop around. You don't always have to. If you don't have it, it's definitely doable. But it just makes sure that, as it falls out, it doesn't move as much. So I don't know if you can see, but it's at the bottom. Then we're going to fill it up with your water. Now I filled it up about 3/4 of the way. Don't want to go all the way to the top because as soon as you start putting your flowers in, it's just going to overflow all over. So I wanted to talk about the flowers that I picked today. So again, like I said, all of these flowers you can get from your garden or at a store. I actually think two really great resources are Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. Back when I was starting, I used to go to Trader Joe's a lot and buy the bouquets and kind of take them apart and put things together. They have a lot of really great options. And they have greenery, and so does Whole Foods. And I think that you should never dismiss greenery in your arrangements. I think it adds so much. Don't think of it as a filler or something ugly that goes in there. And again, embrace it and use everything that nature gives you to make it beautiful. So I have some spray roses, some peonies. It's a little bit early still in the season for everything, but I have some tulips. This is Helleborrhea. Down here I have some heather, aronia, and then seeded eucalyptus. These amazing, magnificent flowers are ranunculus. These are huge. You can get smaller ones too, but they were so pretty I had to get them. And then lilac, of course. So I just wanted to show how you can use branches as well as fresh. So the one thing about branches is the stems are really thick, they're woody, they soak up a lot of water. So you want to make sure that when you're prepping those, if you are going to cut them in your garden, any flower actually, if you're going to get them from your garden, you're going to go cut it off of the tree, cut it off, as much as you can from the stem, put it in an angle, bring it into your home and put it in water right away. Leave it in water for at least an hour before you start working with it. And the reason I say that is so that the stems can get filled with water and then they're firmer and they're easier to work with. If you try to use it right away, you might be able to. It might be okay, it depends on how much water they have in it. But really to get the best look and feel for the flower, you should let it soak for about an hour. Same thing for if you're getting it at a grocery store or anywhere else. Comes like in a plastic wrap. Open everything up as soon as you get home. Take the rubber band off. Cut about an inch or so off the bottom, always at an angle, and then put it in water. And the reason you cut it at an angle, which I don't know if most people probably already know, but always at a 45-degree angle when you're working with flowers so that you get the most surface area so that the flowers can drink. The other important thing is, for the wooden stems, I'll tell you in a minute, sorry. So for roses especially, or flowers with a lot of foliage, you always want to make sure to take off as much foliage as you can. Couple reasons. One reason is so that when the flower is in the water, you want all of the water to go to the bloom. You want the bloom to be as pretty as it can be. And if you leave the greenery or you leave the foliage on it, it's just going to soak up some of your water. So we don't need that. And you never want to put any greenery or foliage below the water line in your vase, because that will just increase bacteria growth, and that will just kill your flowers faster and things won't last as long. So rule of thumb, always take off the greenery. Sometimes flowers have really beautiful greenery, you know, like on the lilac, this is so pretty. I probably won't cut that off, but it's not going to be below the water line, so you'll probably be okay. So, oh, and for the wooded stems, one thing that you should think about doing, if it's really thick, is make like a crisscross on the bottom with your shears. Or you can even use your knife and just kind of scrape some of the bottom. That way it'll soak up as much water as possible. Again, just because it's like a woody stem. Let's see, what else? Okay, so after we do all that, we're going to start making our arrangement. So the first thing we're going to start with is greenery. And for this arrangement, we're going to kind of build a base and then build on top of that. I like to start with my greenery first. I got seeded eucalyptus because it's easy to find, and it has some really beautiful leaves, and it has some great berries, and it also has a really nice draping to it. It's kind of a heavy flower, which again is why we use the floral frog to kind of anchor it down. And then we're also going to use the heather in our base. So whenever I start, I kind of get all my flowers ready on the table first. Usually I start in phases. I just got a little leaf in there. So we're going to start with some greenery. And since this is for, you know, your centerpiece for your table, I'm just going to strip the leaves off the bottom. We don't want to make it too huge or too tall. I think that's important to make sure that your guests can see. Sorry, enough room here. So your guests can see each other from across the table. You don't want the arrangement to be in their face. So I like to keep things below 12 inches. So I'm going to drape this over the side to create my base. And I'm using that frog. I wish you could see, sorry. There's no overhead camera for you to see it. And try to use the berries and stuff too. I have a tree in my yard that I use a lot that has some really fun berries on it. I just think it adds so much to it without it getting heavy. And another thing that I love about garden arrangements is that texture is so important. You know, like it's beautiful to do one type of flower in an arrangement, of course. Flowers are beautiful in and of themselves. You could do a whole arrangement of ranunculus and it would be gorgeous. But if you mix different textures, if you mix the berries with the fluffy, you know, roses, but then the hellebora gives a little bit of a different shape, and the tulips are a little bit different shape, then you're giving a little bit of dimension to your arrangement, and then it makes it a little bit more fun. But to each their own, right? Another thing to think about is people are going to be sitting around your table, so, you know, make sure it's even on both sides as much as you can. So pulling off greenery, you just kind of swipe down. I'm going to put that in here, it's a little long. Again, with the draping, I'm just using this, like I said, as my base, and it's not staying for me very well, of course. Really nice and full. And this is kind of acting as my filler flower, if you will. You know, a lot of times people people talk about there's a focal flower and then there's your filler flowers. I do this because I don't really feel like there's a filler flower. All flowers are really beautiful. You should kind of use whatever you want. And I think, again, if you use a bunch of different types of flowers, it again adds so much dimension to it. Okay. And you can always go back and fill more as you go. So that's kind of my base. And then I'm going to use the lilacs. Again, they kind of have a natural curvature to them. Just to fill it in. I don't know if you can see. And I'm rushing, otherwise I would probably cut these a little bit more, but again, make sure all of your greenery is on. And so like this is a good example. This one is, it's kind of curving out, and maybe somebody might want to cut it, but I think it adds something fun to it. So I'm going to leave that there and just kind of see how it goes. You can always trim things afterwards. If something is not working for you, or you don't like the way that it's feeling in your vase, you can always cut it out, I should say. All right, I'm going to put this guy over here. And I wouldn't say there is like a perfect science or method to doing this, really. I think you just use your eye and put things where you think it looks good. Is that an okay explanation? Okay, so I stuck that one into the frog so that it can kind of sit upright a little bit more. I'm going to fill it in now with a couple of the other flowers. So this is ranunculus. Sometimes people pull off the outer petals if they look kind of wilted or brown. I only do it if they look really sad. I think it's kind of fun to have a little bit of interest out here, and these especially, they kind of flow out. These are called Clooney ranunculus. I have no idea if it's named after George Clooney, but I sure would name it after George Clooney. Anyways, whoops. So another thing to think about when you are arranging your flowers is the rule of 3, right? In general, for design, things always look better in 3s. So I'm going to go ahead and put 3. And another thing, again, when you're doing this, don't think about compacting everything together. Kind of let it flow, let things move a little bit. I'm probably going to put a little bit more greenery in the middle too, just to give it a little bit more of a base, and it fills it in. Do you see how I added the greenery in the middle, so then it fills in that space, and again creates that base that you want. Okay, and then my third one. Another thing I think is fun to use are buds. I would say that for the end though. I always try to use the smaller flowers or accents at the end. Oh, these are stuck to it. But they're so much fun. I mean, why not use it? Again, it adds texture and dimension to it. So I'll save that for later. But just think about that when you're making stuff, or even in your garden, if something's not totally open, you could still use it. It still looks beautiful. This peony is screaming at me. It's so pretty. So I will cut this one and put this make it my focal flower, I guess. Even though I don't think we need a focal flower, really. You can do whatever you want. use the rest because I love peonies. Who doesn't love peonies, right? Stuck in here. Here we go. So if you're getting your peonies from your garden or any flowers from your garden, the one thing I forgot to mention, obviously, when you bring them into your house, to give it a little shake. So you're not, sitting at dinner and an ant goes across the table. It has happened to me many times. But, shake off all the bugs and then you can use it. So this one is curving a little bit, so I'm going to use that as kind of a little fun accent. Another thing to think about when you're doing it, again, not structured, right? Kind of asymmetrical, kind of just loose and flowy, I guess. And then you can fill it or not fill it as much as you want. We probably could just leave it like this, but since I love these, I'm going to use them. Again, these are Hellebora. And this one is kind of drooping, so I think that, and not drooping in a sad way, drooping in a, this is how I want to look. So I'm going to put them in the front, kind of like draping down, again embracing the shape of the flower. Oh, this one's so great. So this one has a little bud on it. I'm just going to trim this, which is fun. So I'm going to add this one here. She's hiding too much. And you're just kind of layering, right? You're layering your pieces. I really wanted to use tulips because I know a lot of people have tulips. Tulips are funny because A, they are kind of, droopy, and B, they continue to grow after you put them in your arrangement. So I don't know if any of you have gotten tulips and brought them home and then the next morning you come down and they're like 6 inches taller or 3 inches taller than when you put them in the vase. I've heard different tricks of like poking them in the top to see if it stops it from growing, but I don't really know that I'm sold on that. I think you're just gonna have to go with it. They also reach for the sunlight too, so if you stay away from a window, maybe, they'll kind of stay where you want them to. But instead of fighting with it, I'm just going to use it to kind of drape over. So then if it grows a little bit, it's okay. It's still going to look just fine. And sometimes I think it's nice to cluster stuff together, especially tulips. I don't know why. I just think that they look so much. Oh, this one's so great. I don't know. It doesn't have to be so proportionate. Does that make sense? I'm going to put all of them on one side, I think, just because I think they will look nice together. That's kind of hiding my ranunculus, so I'm going to pull this out. That's another thing, is just kind of tweak and turn. And then I'll fill it in with spray roses. Oops. Now spray roses, they have so many buds on the top. I like to cut a lot of them off. I know that sometimes people get sad because they think you're wasting flowers. But really, if you want to get this look, it's okay. They're super cute by themselves, so you can put them in a little vase next to it, I think. But, because they're already kind of clustered together, you don't want it to be too heavy to have all 5 on there. Does that make sense? We'll turn it so you can see. I just kind of filled it in. And then I'll probably do the same on the other side, just to balance it. And then I think I'm going to add one more Hellebora. Again, take your greenery off. I didn't take the guard petals off the other one because I thought they were fine. This one's looking a little bit sad, so I might pull some of them off. I wanted to find one to put in the front. Oh, this one's pretty. And don't feel restricted by what you, what you have in your garden either. You can definitely go out and get different things. You know, like if you have great flowers in your garden, but you don't quite have as many options, use some from your garden and some from the store. So then you're balancing everything. I'm looking. I'm gonna put a little lilac in the front. Does anybody have any questions while I'm putting the finishing touches? Yes.
Without any sugar, or I've heard also any aspirin to water to keep the flowers fresh.
To make it last longer?
Yes.
I have heard lots of different things. You can use flower food. Bleach, you can put a couple black drops of bleach with some lemon juice. Sometimes people do that too. I don't know if it does a whole lot. I think some flowers it does. I think a lot of it has to do with your original hydrating with the flowers as soon as you get them to make sure you're hydrating right away. But it doesn't hurt. It's not going to hurt the flowers to put some bleach or some flower food. A lot of times when you get the flowers from your retailer, they have like that little pack, and you can put that in there. That's totally fine. And upkeeping your flowers too, it's tricky with the frog, only because everything is kind of stuck in there. But generally speaking, if you can change your water every 2 days or so, and even if you can trim the bottoms just a little bit, they'll stay fresher longer. That's kind of the rule of thumb of making them last a little bit longer. So I don't know if I really need to add any more. I could, but then it might get a little bigger. So I think I'll stop there, unless we see any. And you can kind of look around to see if there's any holes or anything. But yeah. So there is your centerpiece for springtime.
7 days?
Sorry.
5 days?
Yeah, a couple of days. The lilac won't last very long, unfortunately. So that's the only thing. And if some of your flowers start to wilt or die, don't feel like you can't just take one out. If one flower is dying, you don't have to throw the whole thing away. Just take the one out and then kind of tweak it a little bit so then it'll fill that space up and then it'll keep living. But yeah, a couple of days for sure. Yeah.
What flowers tend to last the longest?
Sure. Roses last a long time. Spray roses last a long time. What else? Carnations. Carnations are actually really beautiful if you use them well. They last a really long time. Tulips can last long. Lysianthus, which is one of my favorites, they last a long time too. And they last out of water for like 2 days too. So yeah, there's a couple of options that you can use. Peonies don't last as long, unfortunately, but they're so beautiful, so. Hydrangeas. So hydrangeas, I love them. I'll tell you the trick about hydrangeas. They need a lot of water, right? They don't like to be without water. I like to put a little, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, alum. It's A-L-L-U-M, I think. You can get it in your spices department at the grocery store. You put a little bit of that in the water and it will last twice as long. Yeah, it does. And let it soak it up for I do it overnight, but as long as you can.
If you're having a dinner party or something at your house, what's the best time to start making the flowers? Like the day of or the day before?
Sure. It depends on when you have time for it, I think. But You can do it anytime. I mean, it depends on how long it's going to take you to do it, but you can, it doesn't matter. They should stay fresh the day before. It depends on where you get the flowers. If you're going to get it from somewhere that the quality is not as good, then maybe I would do it the day of just to make sure that it looks the best. But yeah, just like 2 hours or something before people come. Any other questions? Thank you.